So it's great to be here, Connect. It's an absolute privilege to be here and speaking to you. I'm going to give you a little bit of history about SAP and AstraZeneca, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about our program called Axial. So Axial is the biggest business transformation program in AstraZeneca at the moment. And AD and I will walk you through some of the technology and some of the business scope of what we're trying to achieve. So, the history. Customer number one of SAP was ICI. AstraZeneca was born out of ICI, as you can see in the timeline above. It was actually in a small German town called Ostringen in 1972, and there's no irony in the fact it was April the 1st when they first started inventing SAP. So it was 5 ex-IBM employees working with ICI on punch card mainframe technology. And I did a bit of research into the story, and it's quite interesting in the sense that what they actually had to do was during the day, they did the programming, and then what they had to wait for was ICI to finish their day and go home, and then SAP would come in and use the mainframe overnight. So actually, they did all their testing overnight. So it was like a 24-hour cycle that they went through. And then if they wanted to actually use the computer at the weekend, they had to bring in barrels of beer for the ICI IT department to allow them to run at the weekends. Okay? So quite humble beginnings, but what this does show you is the partnership that we've had with SAP over 50 years, in fact. And that picture's on page 1 of the SAP history book that you'll find when you go around the HQ. So there's a lot of history. Now let's talk a little bit about AstraZeneca. So here's a short video.
From the beginning, science has been at the front and center of everything we do, taking us to places we never thought possible. This is the adventure of what science can do. Science can change the way we see the world, change how we live our lives, make us pioneers. Science can impel us to take risks, share and collaborate. Harness data, technology and AI to accelerate change. Bring people together to achieve the impossible. Fast forward the future. Science can create novel therapies and vaccines, help people with chronic diseases live better, healthier lives. Redefine cancer care. Pioneer treatments for rare diseases. Prevent, modify, and one day, even cure. Make patients partners in their own treatment. Science can inspire us to keep doing incredible things. Give more and more of us access to healthcare. Transform the lives of billions of people. And unite us all around the single aim of improving lives and life chances. Science can do all of this ethically and sustainably. Leading the way to a low-carbon world. Making healthcare systems more sustainable and resilient. Being bold and ambitious to make people, societies and the planet healthier. This is the limitless adventure of what science can do. This is AstraZeneca.
So a little intro to AstraZeneca. As Paul said, you probably hadn't heard of us maybe 5 or 6 years ago. We're now a company of $200 billion market cap. Important to note, before the pandemic, we'd never made a vaccine, ever. So we went from 0 to vaccine in record time. We provided that vaccine at 0 profit to the market as well. And in the course of doing so, it's conservatively estimated that over 7 million lives were saved. So I'm very happy and lucky to work for a company with such purpose. We've got about 85,000 employees. We operate in over 100 different countries as well, so quite a complex organization. And what we realized is as we tried to do our 2030 strategy, which we call our bold ambition, it was impossible for us to do it in the way that we currently do stuff. If you do what you do today, you do it tomorrow, the results will always be the same. But what we realized is we have to fundamentally transform our company if we are to achieve our bold ambition, which is to be double our revenue, 20 new medicines by 2030. We've got a pipeline of about 160 products at the moment. So to get 20 of those through in 6 years is quite incredible. If you're in the pharmaceutical industry, you'll know how much of a stretch that potentially is. And each one of those obviously can save millions of lives, from oncology through to asthma and diabetes as well. So we've been laser focused on ensuring that we can transform our business via the program that I'm going to talk about now. So what will we achieve? Now, it's going to be an enterprise program. Okay, so we talk about from bench, which is your laboratory, through to your patient, which could be an oral dose, or it could be an injection, or anything like that. But it's really important that you understand that what we're trying to do is fundamentally change the way that we think about how we cure diseases as an organization. We need to accelerate how we do things. We need to be more agile in our mindset. If you continue to work in silos, you're never going to be an enterprise agile organization. So we will have to not just do the technology, which is the easy bit. Okay, I often say my job's the easy part. Technology either works or it doesn't. It's binary. It's 1 or 0. Once you put pesky analog humans into the mix, the change journey becomes much more difficult. So we have absolutely started at the beginning with the change management. So what you hear me talk about is about 2 years in the making, from the business case through to approval, through to where we are now. So we're already changing the mindset of our organization in anticipation of the technology change that is going to come. Now, a little bit like Brian, there's a common theme here, right, with the backbone. Ours is obviously a human due to the industry that we're in. But the Axial program is what we have branded our S4 journey. It is effectively a new digital backbone for our organization. And I've been in business transformation programs for about 20 plus years. I've never experienced anything of this scale. So I often talk about this as a once-in-a-generation opportunity for me as a technology professional. What we will do is make maximum use of the platforms. We will make maximum use of SAP's technology, and Adi will talk about that in a second. And I'll close by giving you a bit of a view on the scope and the scale of what we're trying to achieve across our organization. So with that, I'll hand over to Adi to talk about the technology.
Thanks, Russ. Assuming I haven't broken the microphone. Okay, so let's look a little bit about how we have and how we use SAP today. I think we mentioned earlier that SAP is foundational to some businesses. It's foundational to ours. The graphic on the screen here shows some of the volume and scale of how SAP supports AstraZeneca, whether it's through the sales and processing of all of our revenue, our management of over $3 billion worth of our inventory, or our supply chains and supply chain planning. It helps us maintain our license to operate through SOX and GXP controls, but it's used across the whole business, whether it's supporting R&D finance, it's used in every one of our manufacturing sites and finance locations. It can directly impact our ability to supply medicines to patients if SAP is down. So it's fundamental to our operating model, and even our smart factory initiatives in the future are relied upon a stable ERP system. The Axial program that Russ just mentioned, it's huge. It's transformative for AstraZeneca. It's a business transformation program. It's not an IT program, but crucially, it is supported by our move to S4 technologies, but also some of the other new technologies. We're going to maybe try some of the new stuff as well. But how are we going to do that? We have 7 federated, complex, non-standardized ERP systems. And really, they've gone through technical consolidation over the years. So it's more like 20 different ERP systems in 7 physical platforms. So we're going to change that. We're going to start again. We're going to reset. We're going to do enterprise business processes. We're going to do that in a greenfield, fit-to-standard way, and deliver that on a single instance of SAP. That's going to be underpinned by a common data model. And we're also, as I mentioned, looking to exploit some of the newer technologies that SAP have brought to the market. So this is the first time as a business we're going to look at processes at an enterprise level. Silo today in finance and operations is going to change the way we operate. We're going to utilize the new technology from a user experience to give that seamless experience for the users, utilizing Fury, real-time analytics, and fundamentally change how we operate today. Our program scope is vast. If you look at some of the numbers and volumes here, we've identified over 1,000 level 4 business processes that need to be standardized. We have over 450 systems that connect to our ERP systems. They all have to be reconnected, redesigned, and re-architected. We've identified, we thought we had about 3,000 interfaces that connect to these systems. So far, I think we found 3,500. The systems have evolved over the years. I've been at AstraZeneca 20 years, and I think we've done lots of complex innovation, but all in pockets and all different across our sites. We haven't standardized globally at all. And that's created 20,000 plus RICEFs across the systems. So it's great, and we operate really well. Our solutions today work today, but they won't work for the future of AstraZeneca, which is why we're taking this big step to transform and take a reset. I've mentioned already the size and scale across the globe of AstraZeneca. Over 20,000 users will be impacted. That's approximately 1 in 4 people in AZ will be impacted by the program. But we're not staying still. AstraZeneca is growing. We've got 2 new manufacturing sites that we're building as we deliver this program. So the business will continue to grow and change and evolve. The program was approved in Q4 last year, business case. It took us around 2 years as well to get approval, to look at all of our opportunities that this will afford, but also to take the business on that discussion around standardizing our processes and really understanding what that would take. So the program has started. We moved to global design in Q1 next year, and that's when it really starts. And I think there was a really nice comment made earlier that the business, from the C-suite through to the site leaders, through to our current process owners, have all embraced the idea of resetting and global process standardization. We've heard the same comments, as long as it's in certain sites and we take their standard. But no, our target is 80% fit to standard, and that's something that we're going to be hard pushed to keep and maintain that level. We see the first sites going live. One of them is our first site that we're building up in Ireland. So that's something that we have to deliver S4. So these 2 new sites that we're building, we don't want to put them on ECC and extend that legacy system. So we've got that platform and that delivery date to hit. So our first go live, we're aiming for H2, 2025, and we see this program taking till at least 2030. Still working on the deployment plan. There's lots of sites that we have to deploy, and how we deploy and the size and scale that we roll out and how quickly we can do that is something that we're still working on at the moment. But our focus now is ready for a new term for us, our fit to standard workshops. So we're not gathering requirements, we're not doing fit gap, we're doing adopt standard. So that's a very different way of working for us and a very different way of operating a program. And as I say, that starts Q1 next year. Now, it wouldn't be a good presentation from we did feel without an architecture picture or something looking like one. So this is our current estate on the left-hand side. Our teams do a fantastic job to get to this point. We had over 15 systems, 15 different landscapes when I first joined. So we've done some great stuff to get down to this standardization. They're all on the same version of ECC, not quite on the same enhancement packs, but the same version of ECC. We've implemented Business Suite on HANA in some of our core systems. We standardized the on-premise platforms, and we've implemented EWM, but only for one site. So it shows that we've tried to innovate, but we've done it without major process standardization, and that's created us a certain barrier to be able to really transform, hence the decision to move to the right. So that's our ambition, that's our expectation, single instance, nervous to say this after the comments that Paul made earlier, but it's going to be a single standard implementation of S/4HANA hosted in the cloud. So it's an on-premise instance hosted in the cloud. Thanks for the scaring us, Paul. Standard data model. We are going to be re-implementing our MDG system to make sure that it caters for the new data model. We have done some work on that. We've standardized our product master data. We're in the middle of moving customer and vendor to business partner. So there's a lot of work we're doing in advance of starting the S4 journey. But that's our goal on the right-hand side. We're looking at not just the core of SAP on S4HANA, but distributed EWM to support our sites. We've got DataSphere in our scope, SAP Analytics Cloud. And Snowflake is our enterprise data repository and reporting platform, so we'll be integrating with that. So it's not just all SAP. And I think crucially, at the bottom right there, you'll see SAP industry and cloud extensions. We've got quite a lot of work going on at the moment to look at these innovations and make sure we pick the right ones and to make sure that we don't take too many bleeding edge systems, but we are looking at pushing the scope of SAP. We don't believe that taking our current ECCs and just re-implementing an S/4HANA will be enough for AstraZeneca to achieve its ambitions. So we are looking at much more expansion within the technology, but also expansion across our business functions. We want to expand more into commercial and more into R&D. And as Russ mentioned, from the lab to the patient, we really want to just look at some of the other extensions that we've not touched in the past, both new and existing, and really broaden and exploit the implementation we work on here. Because ultimately, we're building a platform for the future rather than just a product. And I think the important bit on the SAP Cloud and cloud extensions, we've got a couple of slides that talk about this both here and in our follow-up session. So if you've got any questions on that, we'll be obviously keen to take them. But now I think let's look at our business processes, and I think I'll hand back to Russ to take you through how we're going to evolve to enterprise processes.
Cheers, Adi. So when we talk about the business scope and what we're trying to achieve here and why it's so much of a transformation, it's important to look at where you are. And where we are at the moment is very traditional. Siloed operations processes, process owners end-to-end. Siloed finance processes, finance process owners end-to-end. And then somehow it all joins up in the middle in a sort of uncomfortable partnership. Where we're going, though, is we've fundamentally re-architected our process landscape to be as close as possible to SAP's reference architecture, which should make our greenfield fit-to-standard journey somewhat easier. So what you can see there on the left is our traditional scope, if you like, with 650 level 4 processes. When you look to the right, you'll see that we've effectively moved those 6 into 5 enterprise processes that go across operations and finance. So those are the ones you can see in the top right there. Underneath that, we've added in 2 brand new processes, and one of them is really important, which is sustainability. Sustainability doesn't exist. There is no reference process for sustainability. So we're going to be making this up as we go with SAP, and I'll talk about some of the products a little bit later. Clinical supply management is a very new module that is currently in the process of being developed in partnership with other pharmaceutical companies, but effectively that manages clinical trials. So clinical trials, if you didn't know, are essentially a sort of massively condensed end-to-end process, but it has a lot of added complexity. Things like blind trials. You have to give out drugs that are actually just placebos, if you like. So it's a very complex, regulated industry. We're going to move to 950 new processes at the moment, and we suspect it will actually grow. Once you start adding in sustainability, and in particular, some of the new processes we're looking at for product lifecycle management, PLM, and you look at cell gene therapy as well, you can see the business scope of what we're trying to achieve is truly huge. Cell gene therapy is an interesting one in the sense of it being a new modality. So if you don't know what that means, in essence, think of it this way. You go to the doctor, you're very ill, unfortunately. Traditionally, you'd be prescribed a medicine, which you would then take. With cell and gene, essentially what happens is your blood is removed from your body, obviously not all of it, It's then transported to a laboratory. It's then treated, supercharged, delivered back to you, put back into your own body, of course, and then it fundamentally supercharges your whole immune system to fight disease. Think of the complexity of that from a process perspective, from a pure supply chain perspective. How do you ensure that the exact drug is delivered to the exact person at the exact time? It's usually about 21 days after it's removed from your body. So you can imagine trying to do that from a technology perspective and actually ensuring that the patient feels safe is going to be somewhat complex. But that's one of the things that we're looking to build into our future landscape as well. So moving on to our ambition. This is also SAP's ambition, because if we buy all of these products, the man over there is going to be very, very happy. But if you look at what we're really starting with at the core, which is the mulberry, if you like, that's your standard finance and manufacturing processes. You then look at the cross-industry product extensions. So these are many of the cloud extensions that any of you might find relevant to your particular areas as well. And then actually for life sciences, there's an added layer. Because we're heavily regulated as an industry, there's a lot of life science extensions that we need specifically to run our businesses as well. And they're very, very complex, and they're also very immature. A lot of these are still being built. And indeed, some of them we actually sit on the design authority for, and we're helping to build and advance with SAP in partnership as well. So I'll call out a few of the main ones that you see on here, and I've highlighted them in yellow. Segmentation, let me start in the middle. So if you don't know what segmentation is, it's a fundamentally different way of storing data to segment your products. In theory, it means you have less products, but more flexibility around those products. For us, there's about 25,000 SKUs that we need to take a look at and simplify. So if we go with segmentation, it will fundamentally change the business model in every single one of those ECC systems that Adi put up there. That's quite scary for a business, because those of you that know what it looks like going through ECC, everyone's remembered the codes, everyone's remembered particular material codes as well. So we're going to fundamentally rip that up and restart with a brand new language with segmentation. Moving out to the green, I've got to start with Green Ledger. Right? So if you don't know what Green Ledger is, I would highly recommend that you go to a session this afternoon that SAP are running on this topic. But fundamentally what it means is you'll be able to run your normal ledger in parallel to having real-time CO2 or sustainability targets alongside it. In theory, it will give you the opportunity at every point of your manufacturing to see how small changes could impact your carbon footprint and your profitability as well. So Green Ledger is one we're particularly happy about, and we are part of the Design Council working with SAP on that particular product. Advanced financial close is what our accountants are getting very excited about, right? So for us, an organization of our size, as I said, we're a $45 billion revenue company, $200 billion market cap. It takes us between 11 and 13 days to close the books at the end of every month. And that's because we've got 7 systems that don't quite do finance the same. They're very similar, but they're not quite the same. So we've had to create a finance data hub as a sort of amalgamator of those to get to the month-end close. We think with advanced finance close, we can probably do it in a couple of days. Yeah. So 9 days off of a month-end close is a massive change for a finance organization. And it gives us a lot of flexibility as we move forward. Moving around the circle a little bit more, advanced transportation management. Why is that important for us? Well, the pandemic taught us many things, but I think one of the biggest things is the fragility of the global supply chain. If you then take into account what's happening with Ukraine, the tensions in China, you start to realize that you need to build a resilient supply chain. If our supply chain breaks, somebody can die. I'm not over-dramatizing it here. These drugs need to be taken at prescribed times on a regular basis. So we need to ensure that our supply to patients is entirely uninterrupted. So some of the new advanced transportation management functionality is really, really important for us. And actually, as part of our growth, we are now starting to build factories as well that actually produce our own raw materials. So we're removing that reliance, if you like, on that fragile global supply chain. So that's where that one comes in. Moving out to the last circle, business networks for life sciences. There's been a lot of rebranding going on, right? BN for something, right, by SAP. But essentially, this is really important for us because it opens up a degree of collaboration with our partners and suppliers that's never been there before. So this will give us real-time collaboration with our suppliers, with our distributors, and also other parts of the organization as well. It links very much into the carbon data exchange as well. So our ambition is to have near real-time carbon from our suppliers so that we can accurately measure Scope 1, Scope 2, and Scope 3, and at the same time represent that through the Green Ledger. Moving on to 2024, on the right there, there's a big chunk of stuff that we're just not quite sure about yet. Because if that scope in that middle picture wasn't enough, we're sort of looking at what could come next. And there's some pretty chunky things in there as well. So in particular, the product lifecycle management, that is where we go beyond finance and beyond operations, actually into the R&D and into the labs as well. We're looking at enterprise portfolio and product management, EPPM, as well, to actually manage our whole end-to-end drug life cycle. So some pretty chunky things that we absolutely need to focus on. So overall, what hopefully you've seen is that the Axial program for us is a huge business transformation, and it's an opportunity for us all. We cannot achieve this without the partnership of SAP. We are going to achieve this without doing RISE, because I'm sure some of you are asking this already. We are not a RISE customer. That does not mean we will not be going RISE, just to be very, very clear. But for a regulated industry of our size and scale, we don't think they're ready for us yet. If you want to know more about this program, there is a session at 11:30 where AD and I will be able to answer any questions that you may have. And also an opportunity, we'd love to meet you and share some of your journeys as well, because many of you will be further down the line than we are. But as you can see, this is going to be a big, big program. Very much UK-centric initially, but we are obviously a global organization. Actually, the project team is based between Macclesfield, which, if you didn't know, is the biggest drugs producing plant in the UK, and Luton. So we're in the Luton office as well for most of our finance operations. Over the course of the next 6 years, we conservatively estimate there's going to be over 1,200 people on this program. As of today, we haven't started global design, and I've got a team of 400. So it gives you the size and scale of ambition of what we're trying to achieve. And with that, I will close and hand back to Paul. Thank you very much.